Fintech Chatter TV. Presented by Tier 1 People. Leaders in Fintech Executive Search. Well, I'm joined by Bridie Ohlsson. Obviously, super big friend of the show. We've caught up in Australia, we've caught up virtually, and now we're here in Singapore on your turf.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. First of all, what do you make of the festival?
It's huge. It's huge. It's a pretty good event. Like, there's robots making coffees. Every single fintech company you've ever heard of is here.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of awesome Aussies as well.
Yeah.
So it's been a big week.
Yeah.
I'm losing my voice. I was at the APAC Asia or the Agri-Food Innovation Summit last week. Just got my voice back, I think, enough on Monday, and I think it's already gone. So obviously a lot of interesting people here, a lot of good conversations.
Yeah, and we've just come out of the presentation by Vitalik as well. How do you think that went?
Well, I do always have a bit of a fangirl moment when I see Vitalik. So I don't know. This is the first time I've heard him speak post-merge. Super interesting to hear, the commitments of the Ethereum Foundation now that they have finally, after 8 years, seen this merge happen. So things like, scalability, security, and user experience. I think the user experience part's really interesting to us, how we actually onboard again users into an Ethereum network. So yeah, it was great. He's super interesting guy to listen to speak. Hey?
Yeah, it was interesting to get his views on Twitter as well, and some of his ideas around that. One of the things that's really struck me, 3 years since I was last here, you and I have just been having a chat, and very much around the blockchain, digital asset space, and how the kind of fintech world and that world really is merged, right? I can't see where the lines are now.
Sure.
What are your thoughts?
For sure. Well, I think that's so true, and I also think that increasingly the blurry line I'm really interested in is the ESG and supply chain agriculture blurry line with fintech. I remember 3 years ago being like one of the very few people talking about agriculture and supply chains in a conference like this. And if you walk through the ESG section, there are multiple platforms talking about capturing data from the upstream end of the supply chain and how we're actually monetizing that, sharing that. I think that's another super blurry line, which is like awesome.
I'm a big person on words, and I remember when you and I recorded the podcast earlier this year, we weren't talking about blurry lines, you were talking about slashes, right? And I think it's it's a really good metaphor as to how, those kind of boundaries or those hard, kind of stops have already started to blur, right?
Yeah, that's really true. And particularly somewhere like Singapore, where everything is tech-enabled. We heard MAS speak earlier, and they are so close and dedicated in both the work that they're doing, but also in the statements they come out with around digital everything, whether it's digital assets, now from a crypto talk, talking about ESG, talking about investments in agri-tracking, and they reference things like they're doing around agriculture. Like that's really cool, and it means that a space like this is very blurry.
Yeah. No, I wanted to ask about Singapore as well, because you've been here 3 years now?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
3 to 4 weird years, right?
And having been here again, and you're kind of just being reminded of the scale of the place, it would be a really stupid question for me to ask you, why are you in Singapore?
People still ask me that all the time.
Yeah, it's just, to give some context, where I live up in Newcastle, busy port, and we've got constantly 10, 15 ships that are kind of lined along the coastline when I look out from the beach. When I flew into Singapore, it was like that scene from the movie Troy, where there was just like fleets and fleets and fleets of ships, of Dunkirk, right, where it's just huge, right? You just the scale of what's going on here, it's hard to contemplate when you're in Australia all the time.
Yeah, it's huge. I think that the thing that is so apparent here is Singapore is the access point, definitely to Southeast Asia, also to larger Asia, and as an Australian business to a global market. And I think that that's so clear in the scale of everything when we're talking agriculture in Singapore. I'm not talking about a country with aims to produce 30% of their food by 2030. It's like, no, we're talking about a region with 300,000 farmers, and it's just like, it's not isolated to Singapore. Any conversation here is about the region. It's really, I mean, it's huge. And that is my morning walk, is past all those gyps. It's just, I mean, it's pretty impressive.
It is, Now, the opening address yesterday was the Deputy Prime Minister of Singapore. I couldn't help but be really kind of drawn to the constant reference to digital assets. And the other kind of caveat being that regulations come in, retail needs to be protected. It seems certainly here in Singapore that there's a far more favourable landscape for blockchain technology, digital assets, crypto. What do you kind of think Australia needs to do to ensure that we don't miss out?
I mean, it is really obvious here, right, that MAS, the government, has a very clear strategy around the parts of Web3 that they are devoted to building. And I think what they said earlier, cryptocurrency, not interested. But crypto assets, DeFi, CBDCs, they're taking a very commercial lens on that work. And I mean, everything happening with the digital finance, CRC in Australia at the moment, there's an opportunity for Australia to be just as commercially minded in these kind of long-term opportunities. And I hope that we do take that opportunity, because I think that it would be a real shame if we treated the work that is happening in Australia purely as pilot space, because here it's not treated as a pilot space. It's commercial space, and you see that by the commitment of like the big banks, the regulators coming out super clear on digital assets. I think it's very helpful as a small startup to engage in that ecosystem with the kind of commercial lens that you need as a small company. We can't just pilot things. We need to be focused on product delivery, and that means we need a commercial framework to do that. So I think that Australia has that opportunity right now with some of the initiatives, and I hope that we take that in a commercial way.
No, I think timing-wise, when you were on the show, the market probably wasn't as difficult as it is right now, and I think economically, the uncertainty that we're now facing, certainly, there was elements of it, but not as strong. If I remember correctly, you just got a funding round away as well, so timing-wise, you kind of got that done. So, what is the outlook for Geora over this next 12 months, and kind of how optimistic are you?
So we're lucky we raised funds, we've got awesome partners, we've got great VC backing now. I think that some of the horizons we were looking at when we were raising, we thought were a little further away, but it's been pretty cool to see them hit earlier. So things like credit trading, whether it's a carbon credit, but really we're thinking beyond carbon. So like a biodiversity credit, regenerative credits, like this is real revenue that is available to go back to farmers in the supply chain. And we thought that might be something we'll be building in 12 months' time, but we're building it now. So that's pretty exciting. In terms of like the fundraising landscape, I know a lot of people who are in that space right now, and for sure it's challenging for a lot of founders. The feedback we've received though is for that like early stage, the valuation crunch hasn't been as tough. There's a lot of money here in Asia. I think something like 250 Chinese family offices have incorporated in Singapore recently. So there's a lot of like particularly kind of strategically aligned money available. I know that it's a different story at like the scale-up end of town, Series B, Series C, but for our stage, like the growth opportunities there in terms of market opportunity, there's still investment interest that's kind of flowing our way, and it's feeling like a really positive next few years for us.
The resounding message that I've taken from this last day and a half has been almost like a call to action to the fintech industry for us to really start. The world's got some massive problems to solve. Right? Can we focus on solving those problems? And then we still got, I'd say, a lot of other stuff that seems to be distraction-based, kind of gimmicky stuff as well. How are you sensing kind of the mood towards the types of solution that you've got, which is solving big problems, versus the kind of gimmicky kind of Web3 elements that we're kind of still seeing, make a lot of noise, and and I remember saying this to you, right? Like, the noise that's made detracts from, the kind of people that actually, like yourself, really solving real problems.
Yeah. It's a hard one, isn't it? Because it's like, in a way, lots of the technologies that come out of gimmicky things mature into something, or are kind of aligned, whether it's identity solutions or whatever else it might be, with something that is like technically valuable. And I think if you walk around these halls, there's a QR code you can scan to get an NFT you can use to purchase a coffee made by an AI-enabled robot, and that's pretty gimmicky.
Yeah.
But also, there are no agribusinesses or farmers walking around here, and if that company is also investing in solving for scaling solutions and identity solutions in a decentralized technology space, then sure, use the gimmicks, get people excited about it, and build something interesting alongside it. I think that one of the benefits of a crunch like we're seeing in the market right now is you're left with people who are building. And people still want to enjoy the technology and like the weird things you could do with it. So I don't think like gimmicks are necessarily bad, but I think the distraction from substance is what's frustrating. And I think it's good for us that we are given a space where we have to be super product centric and raise a customer focus around the value we're delivering, and we still have that space. And then we come to a place like this to check out all of the weird and wonderful adaptations of this technology as well. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Now, there's also something else that I've got to do on it. I've got to collect the t-shirt.
The t-shirt?
The t-shirt, yeah.
Oh, I've got the best t-shirt for you this week, though.
Right.
So all of the Singapore Fintech Festival speaker merch is being tracked on Geora. So I need to find one of these like conference t-shirts.
Right. Awesome.
Because you can see all the circular economy, exactly where the cottons come from, tracked all the way through the supply chain.
Wow.
QR code on the t-shirt.
Awesome.
So it's like the ultimate merch for you.
That is the ultimate merch. That's definitely going to win the competition this year.
I know, I'm going to track you down one.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Bridie, it's been great to catch up. I know we're going to have a lot more fun over this next couple of days. Awesome to hear about the continued success of Geora. It's great to, it's just fantastic to know that my kids are going to benefit from a world where there's people like yourself who are just focusing everything on solving real problems.
Thanks for giving us time to chat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fintech Chatter TV. Presented by Tier 1 People. Leaders in Fintech Executive Search.